Top 10 Pauper Commander Black cards. 10th place goes to Stinkweed Imp. It is 2 and a black for a 1/2 flyer. When it deals combat damage to a creature, destroy that creature. But why Stinkweed Imp is in the top 10 is for its Dredge 5 ability, which is if you would draw a card, you may mill 5 cards instead. If you do, return this card from your graveyard to your hand. This allows Stinkweed Imp to fill your graveyard super quick, and obviously black wants a full graveyard. No other card has Dredge 5 on it, and that is why Stinkweed Imp is in the number 10 slot. An honorable mention for the number 10 slot would be Street Wraith, which is 3 and a black for a 3/4 Swamp Walk. But why Street Wraith would be a great card to include in most black Pauper decks is for its cycling pay 2 life ability. Ability to thin your deck for 2 life while also filling your graveyard is great. The number 9 spot for Black Pauper Commander goes to Grey Merchant of Asphodel. It is a zombie for 3 and black, a 2/4, with when Grey Merchant of Asphodel enters the battlefield, each opponent loses X life, where X is your devotion to black. You gain life equal to the life lost this way. If you don't have any other devotion other than Grey when he enters the battlefield, you will gain 6 life and drain all of your opponents for 2. That's not super impressive for 5 mana, but if you have 7 black pimps, which isn't uncommon, you'll drain everyone for 7 and gain 21 life. Grey's ability to gain life and close a game is what places him in the number 9 slot. Another honorable mention for the number 9 slot would be Unexpected Fangs. It is 1 and a black to put a 1/1 counter and a lifelink counter on target creature, which is another very easy way to gain life. However, it's more difficult because you need a large creature, whereas Grey, you just need black pimps. The number 8 slot goes to Nested Shambler. For 1 black, you get a 1/1 zombie with when Nested Shambler dies, create X tapped 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens, where X is Nested Shambler's power. 1 black for 2 bodies is a pretty great rate, but if you're able to grow Nested Shambler's power, then you will get more tokens, which is why he is in the number 8 slot. Another card that is very similar to Nested Shambler is Shambling Ghast. For 1, you get a 1/1 zombie again, and when Shambling Ghast dies, choose 1. Either target creature and opponent controls get -1/-1 until end of turn, or create a treasure token. Arguably, creating a treasure token is stronger than a single squirrel, but because of the ability with Nested Shambler to make multiple squirrels if its power is greater, Nested Shambler is still the better card. Shambling Ghast's removal is also a great option. The number 7 slot goes to Dark Ritual. For 1 black, you get to add 3 black. This allows for explosive turns, getting your commander out ahead of turn, or being able to hold up more removal than opponents expect, which is why Dark Ritual gets the number 7 spot. Some cards that are similar to Dark Ritual are Songs of the Damned. For black, you get to add a black mana for each creature card in your graveyard. If you have 8 creature cards in your graveyard, getting to add an extra 7 mana is crazy. But if somebody exiles your graveyard, then this card is very vulnerable and dependent on how much you're able to fill your graveyard. Cabal Ritual is another great ritual where for 1 and a black, you add 3 black, just like Dark Ritual, except it also has Threshold, where if you have 7 more cards in your graveyard, you instead add 5 black. The number 6 spot goes to Crypt Rats. Crypt Rats are 2 and a black for a 1/1 rat creature. Then they have an ability where you pay X, and Crypt Rat deals X damage to each creature and each player, and you can only spend black mana on this ability. This is super powerful because you can pay X and hold priority and pay X and hold priority and pay X, so that if somebody's able to regenerate a creature, you're still able to knock it down, or Crypt Rats is able to continue killing creatures even after Crypt Rats is gone. And say you activate X once, you kill a Nested Shambler, then the Nested Shambler creates a token, then the next activation of Crypt Rats goes off and takes out that token. And why Crypt Rats is number 6 on this list is because it is the strongest Pauper board wipe, in that you can pay as much X into it as you have black mana. And in Pauper, it's difficult to remove a large number of creatures with toughness greater than 3. And if you're able to give Crypt Rats lifelink, you're able to gain a ton of life from a large activation, especially if there are many creatures on the battlefield. Another great board wipe in black is Drown in Sorrows. It's a sorcery for 1 and 2 black, where all creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn, and allows you to scry 1. Then Suffocating Fumes is another pretty good Pauper board wipe, where for 2 and a black at instant speed, creatures your opponents get -1/-1 until end of turn, and it has cycling 2. Notably, Crypt Rats is also activatable at instant speed, so you can wait to board wipe until the turn before yours, allowing you to rebuild before any of your opponents can. The number 5 slot goes to Deadly Dispute. It's 1 and a black for an instant, which reads: as an additional cost to the spell, sacrifice an artifact or creature, draw 2 cards, and create a treasure token. Deadly Dispute is so strong that it's actually banned in 60-card Pauper. This is because essentially for 1 mana, you're able to sacrifice an artifact or creature to get 2 cards. The reason I say for 1 mana is because you get that treasure token. Furthermore, that treasure token can allow you to have an explosive turn later, or it can even help you mana fix, which is why Deadly Dispute is deserving of that spot. Some cards with similar effects to Deadly Dispute are Fanatical Offering, which for 1 and a black is an instant that also has an additional cast of the spell of sacrificing an artifact or creature. That also allows you to draw 2 cards, but instead of creating a treasure token, you create a map token. The map token arguably isn't as strong as a treasure token, which is why Fanatical Offering is worse than Deadly Dispute, but the treasure token is also very strong. And you can chain Fanatical Offerings or Deadly Disputes and sacrifice the treasures or the map tokens to one or the other. So really, these are both super strong cards. Reckoner's Bargain is another similar effect. It's for 1 and a black and instant that also requires you to sacrifice an artifact or creature and allows you to draw 2 cards. But this time, instead of making a treasure or a map, you gain life equal to the sacrificed permanent's mana value. So it's a nice way to gain life, but you're not able to chain it like you are Deadly Dispute and Fanatical Offering, which is why Reckoner's Bargain is arguably worse. Eviscerator's Insight is another effect like that, also 1 and a black for an instant that requires you to sacrifice an artifact or creature and draws you 2 cards, but this one doesn't have any immediate upside and instead has flashback for 4 and a black, which is arguably again worse than those other 3 cards, but another great card. Village Rites reads the exact same as Corrupted Conviction. They're both 1 black pimp for an instant that requires you to sacrifice a creature and allows you to draw 2 cards after. As you can see, black has a ton of effects like this. Deadly Dispute is the best out of all of them, but building decks around effects like this are very fun as you never run out of cards. The number 4 spot goes to Extract a Confession. It is a sorcery for 1 and a black, which, as an additional cost to this spell, you may collect Evidence 6, which is exile cards with total mana value 6 or greater from your graveyard, and the ability is each opponent sacrifices a creature. If evidence was collected, instead each opponent sacrifices a creature with the greatest power amongst, which reads each opponent sacrifices a creature. If evidence was collected, instead each opponent sacrifices a creature with the greatest power amongst creatures they control. This is an awesome removal spell, as it costs you 1 and a black and a card, and you are able to potentially remove the 3 strongest creatures on your opponent's boards, making it an awesome removal spell. Accursed Marauder is a creature for 1 and a black, which accomplishes similar effects, as when it enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices a non-token creature. You are more likely than not going to sacrifice itself to this ability, but your opponents potentially will have to sacrifice a stronger creature, especially if they're playing a... But your opponents will potentially have to sacrifice pretty strong creatures, especially if they're playing Voltron. This is also awesome as it gets around Indestructible, Shroud, and Hexproof. Innocent Blood is also a great card, where for just a black it's a sorcery, and each player sacrifices a creature. If you sandbag playing a creature and wait for your opponents all to commit to the board, then cast Innocent Blood and only start building your board after then Innocent Blood for just one black can be a superb removal spell. Now we're approaching the top 3, and the third best card in Pauper Black Commander is Siphon Mind. For 3 and a black, it's a sorcery that reads each opponent discards a card. You draw a card for each card discarded this way. Essentially, it's 4 mana for 6 cards, because you get 3 and your opponents discard 3. Sure, they're likely discarding the cards that they need least, but having enough cards in Pauper is pretty difficult, and every card is important, which is why Siphon Mind is so strong. Furthermore, if there was a card that was just 3 and a black to draw 3 cards, it would near definitely be playable. So the fact that this has the additional upside of each opponent having to discard a card is crazy and easily makes it worth the number 3 spot. Then, just to further show how strong Siphon Mind is, Night's Whisper is an awesome card. For 1 and a black, you draw 2 cards and lose 2 life at sorcery speed. It's a black card staple, and Siphon Mind, for double the cost, gets you an extra card while also giving your opponents card disadvantage. Sign in Blood is pretty much the same as Night's Whisper, and also super playable, and so is Rowan's Grim Search, which is 2 and a black for an instant with Bargain, which means you may sacrifice an artifact, enchantment, or token as you cast the spell. And then the instant itself reads, if the spell was Bargain, look at the top 4 cards of your library, then put 2 of them back on top of your library, and the rest in your graveyard, and then draw 2 cards and you lose 2 life. 3 mana to draw 2 cards and lose 2 life is at instant speed is okay. The Bargain ability makes Rowan's Grim Search even stronger, but compare Rowan's Grim Search to Siphon Mind, and you'll see why Siphon Mind is such a powerful card. Reaping the Graves is also a great way to get card advantage in black. For 2 and a black, it's an instant with Storm, which reads return target creature from your graveyard to your hand. But to get card advantage from Reaping the Graves, you'll have to have a pretty full graveyard, meaning you'll have to dodge graveyard hate, and you'll have to be able to get the creatures there in the first place. Plus, you'll only be able to get creatures back. You're not able to get any instants or sorceries, enchantments, or artifacts. And you'll have to either storm yourself or wait for an opponent to storm to be able to get large card advantage from Reaping the Graves, which is actually a very strong card, but further again shows the strength of Siphon Mind. So now I'm sure you're thinking, how can you get better than Siphon Mind? Well, the number 2 spot goes to Bojuka Bog. It is a land that enters tapped, and when it enters the battlefield, you exile target's player's graveyard. For the extremely low cost of having a land enter tapped, you're able to potentially completely hose an entire graveyard-based deck, which is why Bojuka Bog is in the number 2 spot. Some other lands in black that are super powerful are Vault of Whispers, which is an artifact land. The reason why it's so strong is it has artifact ETB triggers. It's also sacrificable to, say, Deadly Dispute or Fanatical Offering that we talked about earlier. And it enters untapped, which is also huge. Another very powerful Pauper land is Witch's Cottage, which is a swamp. And if you control 3 or more other swamps, it enters untapped. And when it enters untapped, you may put target creature from your graveyard on top of your library. This is great if your deck is dependent on just a single creature, and that way you can cast the creature. After it gets removed, you put it on top, and then you can cast it again. Mortuary Mire, which enters tapped, and it reads, when Mortuary Mire enters the battlefield, you may put a target creature from your graveyard on top of your library. So super similar to Witch's Cottage, but it always enters tapped, but also always puts a creature back on top of your library. But if you compare the strength of Mortuary Mire Witch's Cottage, and Vault of Whispers to Bojuka Bog, you'll see that Bojuka Bog is easily the best land in Black Pauper, or arguably even the best land in Pauper. And I know technically it's colorless, but whatever, it's black. Then the number one spot of all of Black Pauper Commander goes to Snuff Out, which is 3 and a black for an instant, which reads destroy target non-black creature. It can't be regenerated. Now 4 mana to destroy a non-black creature is an absolutely terrible rate. However, if you control a swamp, you may pay 4 life instead of paying Snuff Out's mana cost. Now paying 4 life and using a single card, which is available at instant speed, to remove a creature is an untold rate. It can keep you alive if somebody's swinging at you with a large creature for lethal. It can remove a combo when you're completely tapped out, or it can even just deny value early game without you having to pay any mana into it. Furthermore, getting your commander removed in Pauper is very difficult to recover from, so being able to remove somebody else's commander without having to pay any mana is awesome, which is why Snuff Out is the number one card in Black Pauper Commander. Is Spinning Darkness, which for 4 and 2 black reads at instant speed, you may remove the top 3 cards of your library from the game instead of playing Spinning Darkness casting cost. Spinning Darkness deals 3 damage to target non-black creature, you gain 3 life. This again, you're hopefully never paying the mana cost for, but removing the top 3 black cards from your graveyard, especially in Pauper Black, is super easy and essentially gains you 3 free life while also being able to eliminate something, while also being able to eliminate a threat with 3 toughness or less for essentially free, which is why Spinning Darkness is also an awesome removal spell that should get ran in almost all Black Pauper decks, especially if they're mono black. Then Fairy Macabre is also another great free interaction spell. Essentially, you'll never be casting it again because it's 1 black for a 2/2 flyer. Not very worth it. However, if it's in your hand, you can discard it and exile up to 2 target cards from a graveyard. So somebody's trying to recur something or put something back on its top of its library. So if somebody's trying to recur a creature or recur an instant or sorcery, trying to assemble some kind of infinite using their graveyard, then Fairy Macabre is able to, for free, eliminate the threat, which is awesome. A great removal spell in mono black Pauper is Go for the Throat, which is 1 and a black for an instant to destroy target non-artifact creatures. It isn't too often that you'll be running into important artifact creatures, which means essentially for 1 and a black you're able to remove almost any threat that you need to. And 2 mana to remove a threat is a great rate for Pauper Commander. Another great removal spell is Tragic Slip, which is for 1 black, it's an instant, which gives a creature -1/-1 until end of turn. But it also has Morbid, which reads that creature gets -13/-13 until end of turn instead if a creature died this turn. 1 to give -13/-13 is awesome. And meeting the needs of a creature dying this turn is super easy, especially because Tragic Slip is an instant. Some honorable mentions are Unearth, which is black for a sorcery with cycling 2, which reads return target creature with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. If your commander costs less than 3 mana, it will almost definitely be removed at some point during the game, so being able to unearth it getting around commander attacks, and while being able to more than likely discount your commander, assuming it's a 2 or 3 drop, makes Unearth a very strong card in Pauper. Then another great honorable mention is Troll of Cosmic Doom. It is 5 and a black for a creature troll with 6/5 and Swamp Cycling 1. Trump of Cosmic Doom can't be blocked except by 3 or more creatures. Having the flexibility of Swamp Cycling it for 1 to fill your graveyard and thin your deck is great, and late game it's not a dead draw like a normal swamp would usually be, because for 6 mana you can get a 6/5 with Triple Menace, which is why it's an honorable mention and a great card to include in your black decks. Then the last honorable mention on our list is Refurbished Familiar, which is 3 and a black for an artifact creature zombie rat. It is a 2/1 with flying, affinity for artifacts, and when it enters the battlefield, each opponent discards a card. For each opponent who can't, you draw a card. If your opponents have no cards in hand and you have 30 artifacts on the battlefield, it's 1 black for a flying 2/1, which draws you 3 cards. Now, of course, that situation is very unlikely, but being able to get a 2/1 that forces your opponents to discard a card each, and it usually costing 2 or 3 mana at most, if your deck is built around artifacts, makes it an awesome include in most Pauper decks.